Hey guys, Mike Mejwal here. I'll be your judge for the month of April photo contest. You may have heard me speak before, but if you haven't, a little bit about myself. I've been a professional photographer for the past 6 years, let's call it. I'm based out of Frisco, Texas, and I'm most well known for my astrophotography and landscape photography. But I do shoot everything from weddings to portraits to professional sporting events and more. So anything you could legally point a camera at, I pretty much shoot. I also spend a lot of my time teaching workshops at all the national parks in the United States, Canada, and now Iceland. So I'm on the road quite a bit, so it is definitely an honor to be able to judge your guys' work and take some time to see the world through your eyes. A little bit about what I'm looking for as far as criteria goes. First and foremost is, did you nail it right in the camera? Did you get a shot that isn't overexposed or a shot that is nicely focused? Also, how is your composition? Is it balanced, symmetrical? Are you utilizing leading lines, patterns, any sort of repetition, anything that's going to help take your viewer's eyes and allow them to work through your photo? And also, did you make your subject well known? Do I know what you want me to look at in this image? Is this going to be an image that somebody's going to look at and know exactly what they're looking at, or will they be a bit confused? All those elements plus some other things will be used to judge the images, and yeah, I hope you guys take my feedback and run with it, and I'm looking forward to see what you have with our beginners category. First image is MRD with a score of 6. What I like about this image is it's nicely exposed, it's nice and sharp. It's just lacking an interesting composition or an interesting subject. I understand, it looks like some sort of racing vehicle, but overall it's just more of a shot about branding than anything. So, zoom out here, try and find a way to display exactly, right now all I see is the brand, and that doesn't do anything for me. But good job on getting the exposure and the composition correct. Just work on making a more compelling image. Okay, next up we have Shrine for His Love with a score of 7. Nicely exposed. You didn't blow out the highlights of the statue. Sky looks good here. Overall, it's just still kind of a very weak image as far as subject matter goes. I don't know, am I looking at the statue? Am I looking at the church? Nice sky though. What I would have done here is, if you wanted me to focus on the statue, I would have really zoomed in on the statue. If you wanted me to focus on the church, I would have zoomed out way more. That way the statue isn't as prominent. Right now it's a hard balance between the statue and the church, so I don't know exactly what I should be looking at here. Is At Prayers with a score of 8. I love the simplicity of this shot. Most people would walk right past this and just go, it's a pair of shoes. But the photographer saw the scene and knew what was going on and captured just these empty pair of shoes or slippers there. It's a nice simplistic shot. I would have tried to get maybe a little bit lower, or if my scene really didn't have anything else to look at, I would have made the shoes very prominent in the image and really made them the subject. Not saying they're not the subject here, because they stand out quite well. Just a lot of kind of boring subject matter going on besides the shoes. So I would have found a way to make those shoes really stand out even more. Is At the End of the Day with a score of 8. What I really liked about this image is it's just something that everybody would walk past and never even look at twice. The photographer grabbed a shot of this. It's a very interesting, almost pattern, artistic creation. Kind of looks like a sculpture of shoes, and I know it wasn't intended to be that, but it's just a very interesting subject, so it works. Nice focus, nice tones in the image. If there's something I would do differently here, maybe zoom out just a tad, or try and put that whole scene up against a big blank wall to make it stand out more, not just do such a tight shot here. Next up, we've got Pedaling with Petals with a score of 9. I love the color and the contrast here. Contrast doesn't always have to be light versus dark. Bright colors versus dark colors, complementary colors. That's all contrast. So in here, I love the contrast of the purples and the greens. I would have zoomed out just a little bit here and not cut off the bottom of the bicycle there. Not sure if there's a reason for that, but I would have tried to zoom out just a little bit more. We've got a shot of 2 pomegranates with a score of 10. Nice still life shot, nice lighting, nice color, nice contrast. That works in a positive and negative manner. Got good contrast, but you've got almost too much contrast. There's a little bit of catch light on the dish in the front, which gives it a little bit of separation so it doesn't look like the pomegranates are floating. But what I've done differently in this shot is I would have chosen a dish that was maybe white or kind of a light blue or something that would really stand out. When the dish fades off into the backdrop there, it looks like everything's just floating back there. So find a way to separate that from the background and you've got a really nice image. Okay, so we have Canada Rocky Mountains next with 11. Good job doing a zoom shot here. You know, these mountains up there are extremely gorgeous and very pretty, so a lot of people tend to shoot very wide and forget that they can zoom in on just the peaks. So good job here compositionally, you know, thinking outside the box and capturing that peak with a nice, looks like sunrise light hitting it from the side there. Negatives on this shot is looked a little soft, and that might be from zooming in too much or cropping in post, but also the white balance is a little blue, a little grungy for me, so I would have tried to warm the scene up a little bit or kind of fix the white balance a bit more to make it look a little bit more natural. We've got Death Valley with a score of 11. Really nice scene. I love the contrast in the sky, clouds, beautiful mountains as well. Overall, just a really nice landscape scene. Negatives, I would have tried to find maybe a little better area of mountain that had more structure to it. There's some mountains that have some really nice peaks, some kind of sharper edges. Maybe find some foreground as well, some cracked mud or some wildflowers if you're there during that time of the year. But you know, a scene with beautiful skies like this and beautiful mountains always works. There's always a little bit more you can do to make it a little bit more intriguing. So finding some foreground here would have done a really good job. Okay, next up we've got the bird with colors. And that's exactly what I see. Lots of colors here. So good job on finding something that is a colorful subject and something that pops really, really well. I love the positioning of the bird, how it's looking off to the left. Well, it's left, outright, and it's not looking directly at you here. You see the full outline of the bird, and it's definitely got a very interesting face, so that adds to the image. It looks a little bit soft, so I don't know if that's focus or cropping in once again. So I would kind of make sure that focus and sharpness is there. Overall, great image though, great color, great contrast, and I love the composition. Okay, so now we have our first honorable mention entitled Calm Sunset by Krishna Degu, and this received a score of 13. What I loved about this image is it is a very nice example of a silhouette and how a silhouette should be shot. Love the colors, love the tones. Like I said, perfectly executed silhouette. Only thing negative about this image is I would have shot it probably even a little bit darker than this to try and get a little bit less blowout from the sun. But great job, and keep on doing what you're doing. We have our third place image in the beginners category. Sarenbach, I believe. Fantastic image. I absolutely love everything about it. The depth of field. Love the contrast of going from blue to green back to blue and then having the gate sticking out as well and the color of the gate popping on the green. It looks like it was shot at a relatively shallow depth of field, so I maybe would have shot this at f/16 on a tripod, just something to get a little bit more depth throughout the whole scene here. But love the leading line as well of the fence on the left hand side of the field. We have our second place image called Guiding Hand, and that is by Kathy Lynn, and this received a score of 15. Great job to the photographer for seeing this scene, for paying attention to the little kid and that expression that they have on their face. You can't see it with their mouth, but just that expression in their eyes. I've tried to get just ever so slightly ahead of them to try and see the person's hand holding their hand. So the first place image here in our beginners category called Dragonfly by Ping Sheng with a score of 15. What separates this from the previous image, because they both received the same score, is the detail. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but every little bit of detail in the dragonfly is sharp. You can see all the little, looks like I guess they're veins going through the wings, but all the details in the eyes. Crop is really nice and balanced. Exposure is balanced really well. Color is really nice. There's not much that I would change at all. Alright, so now on to the intermediate category. Autumn Coming, which received a score of 6. What I liked about this image is the color is great, nice contrast in color. The leaf is backlit, so it pops off that darker background really nicely. But overall, it just kind of lacks appeal. There's nothing really that screams out, says, look at this image. I'm looking for a very distinct subject, something that grabs my attention. And I get what the photographer was trying to do here, but to improve this image, I might have moved a lot closer to that yellow leaf and tried to get it to contrast with the green leaf. The title says Autumn Coming, so show that transition of autumn in a much more prominent way. PRW688. This image also received a score of a 6. It has nice color, it's got nice sharpness to it, but overall it's a bit cluttered for my liking. There's no distinct subject. I understand that there are flowers, but where exactly is my eye supposed to go? If you really wanted to get your audience to focus on the raindrops that are on the leaves, this would be a perfect opportunity to get a macro lens, zoom in up on that. Or if you wanted the flowers to really be what your audience looks at, need to find an angle to where they're not all pushed together in the way that they are, and it doesn't just look like a big batch of pink and yellow. It needs to have a more dominant subject. Next up, A Child and a Tulip with a score of 7. Let's start off with positives in this image. I love the eye contact and the moment between the selective coloring like this. Not really a big fan of. I understand what it does. It really pops the subject, like the flower against the other background, but not just a big fan of it. Also, the coloring of the child's skin is really, really orange. Need to work on that skin tone and the selective coloring. I would have liked to see this image in full color as opposed to that. It's Necessary House with a score of 7. But as far as photography goes, the exposure on the image is very nice. I love the green contrasting with the brown, but once again, it's an image that looks like somebody just walked by and pointed a camera at and took a picture of. It needs to be creatively composed. So for an image like this, I would have tried to find an angle that had the houses kind of hidden in this forested area, and really show scale, size, maybe isolation. Is Hanging Out with Mom with a score of 8. Pros: awesome moment. Good eye. Way to see this. Also, way to get the mother dipping her nose into the water there. I don't know if that was intentional or not, or if you just walked up and started shooting, but negatives, it's a little hot for my liking. Feathers on both animals are blown out in some spots, so I would have tried to pull your highlights down a little bit, or a little bit quicker shutter. Also, the biggest negative though on this is the fact that the top of the frame has the mother's neck cut off. So make sure you have the whole animal in the shot and you're not allowing any part of it to be cut off in the image. Making Memories with a score of 8. First off, the pros. Awesome scene, awesome moment. Way to keep your eyes open for something like this. And also, good job exposing this as a silhouette. Now the negative for this image is when you're going for a silhouette, you really want to make sure that whatever subject you have is really well outlined. And in this instance, the tree is great, but the people sitting there, it looks like a two-headed person. You need to create separation between them somehow. And I know you may or may not have known these people, but if you could walk around a bit to try and get an angle to where you could see the separation between the two, that would have been an awesome image. But good job here. Bottle and Bowl with a score of 8, but I really like this image. I love the lighting on the details. I'm not a big fan of spiders, but the spider web on the top right corner there connecting from the pottery to the wood. It's just a really nice detail, and I love the way that the light is hitting it and just popping it. Negatives: I think it could have had a little bit better subject. It's a great moment, but overall it still is just a bottle. The color is great on it. I would have liked to see this shot from just a tad lower angle. That's just me and personal preference there. Also, the highlights on the floor are a little hot, so I would have pulled that down as well as on the right side of the bowl. Fishing in the Clouds with a score of 9. I really like this image a lot, actually. It's a perfect reflection, great moment. It's a good eye to see this. The things that are negatively impacting it, though, are your sky is still a little blown out, your highlights are a little washed out. Also, the overall color tone of the image seems to be a bit blue. So I know that you want to get the blues in the skies, but you don't want to wash out the greens and the skin tone of the subject. So you could have masked the sky to be really blue and then masked out everything else and created a nice warm look to the grass and also the skin tones there. To incongruity with a score of 10. Once again, I really like this image. The color, the contrast, the pop, the lighting is awesome on it. The only thing that is negatively impacting this image, in my opinion, is that it's shot on a black background, and I get that for contrast, but if you're going to shoot this on a black background, you need to make sure it doesn't look like the subjects are floating, which it does. You need to hit it with a backlight, like some sort of rim light, to create separation, or maybe have this image shot on a wooden table with, you know, a lighter background, something that allows the subject to actually be standing on something and you can see that that's placed on it, as opposed to just floating in the air, which it looks like. To our honorable mention, the image is called Catching the Last Rays of Play with a score of 12 by Sherry Jacko. Did it for me with this image is beautiful sunset, beautiful silhouette. These subjects in this silhouette are very well defined. You can see the outline of the boy on the seesaw. You can see the outline of, looks like somebody going down the slide. The only thing negatively that I would have changed on this image, maybe cropped up from the bottom right. There's still a lot of negative space down there, so you don't need all that. So if you cropped in from the bottom right a bit to the top left, that would have created a cleaner image. To our third place winner, entitled Snake by Walter Brock. This received a score of 13. What is awesome about this image is the detail. I don't know how well you guys can see it there because you're probably looking on a projected screen, but you can see every little detail of the snake's skin, the snake's eye, and it looks like even some small little teeth. I love the contrast here. Negatives is it looks like the image is just a little yellow in my opinion. I would have pulled down my white balance to try and cool this off just a smidge. Overall, it's a great image. I love the depth of field. I love the moment. Good job there. Second place winner. The photo is called Canyon Colors by Janet Davenport. This received a score of 14. She focused in on a tighter shot here. There's a beautiful amount of contrast, everything from the purple color all the way up to the orange color. You have lights, you have darks. The detail's great in it. I love the lines. It flows really nicely. Good job. The negative to this image is I would have moved over ever so slightly to my right. Kind of get that darker object out of the top left. Not necessarily all the way, but towards taking up about half the space that it's taking up now. That's the only thing that kind of detracts from this image. It pulls my eye that way when I know I should be looking at the brighter, warmer colors. First placed image from the intermediate category is Tame the Untamed by Ming Yang. This received a score of 15. What I liked about this image is the moment, the action. You did a great job just freezing everything from the horse's jump to the expression of the cowboy up there. It's a nice contrast in colors. The colors all pop here. The sharpness of the image is great. The depth of field shot here is great. You don't have a really big depth of field, so therefore the people and the signage in the background are kind of soft, which allows you to really focus on the horse here. The advanced category, we're going to start off with Lower Antelope, which received a score of 7. Oppositionally, I like how the photographer framed up the edges here to kind of create a window look. Now, negatives is definitely the fact that this image is underexposed and it looks like it's over-processed a little bit. You could see a bit of haloing on the negative, on the bottom side of the image. Also, the colors aren't here, and that's not the photographer's problem or issue. Or this was a nice scene, probably to see with your own eyes, but photographically, it would have been better to move maybe 30 feet up, where you could start seeing some of that orange light appear and get get that look there. Merced County Courthouse with a score of 8. A nice exposure here. Good job actually exposing for the highlights. This is a very difficult scene to shoot. Your naked eye obviously sees all the greens and the trees and the blue in the sky and the white on the building, but the dynamic range of the camera can only capture so much of that. Here, good job exposing for the highlights. What I would have done though is I would have processed this to where I shot it as is, but I would have pulled the shadows up to reveal some of those greens in the tree here to our right and also in front of the image. I know this is not your fault at all, but empty skies like this are kind of meh. You know, for a nice shot that involves the sky, I always try and get clouds. In a Starbucks in China with a score of 8. Nice moment, nice scene. The light is great. When you have this window light coming in, you know, obviously, you know, it's very easy to blow out the window to try and expose for any subject that's in front of it, but you did a good job controlling the light and handling that. The negatives here, biggest negative I've got is it looks like the actual focus point on the image is the back of the head of the lady in the middle, which allows two faces that we can see to be out of focus. So, you know, on this image, definitely move your focus point to the lady on the left on her face to get that in focus. No need to see, you know, all the details of the back of the head of the lady in the middle. We want to see the details in the faces. You've got silver fire plug with a score of 9. Interesting. And of course, it's not the fire hydrant that makes the image interesting. It's the swiggly, swirly sidewalk that we've got flowing through the image, and you know, having it flow out of the corner all the way through to the other corner leads your image fire hydrant. So it's not necessarily the most entertaining subject matter in the image, but you know, a good job on finding a way to make this composition work. If I were shooting this, I would have found an angle, maybe walk up a bit to the next little curve without the fire hydrant, and worked on just an image of the sidewalk flowing through bottom right to top left, and made it about the sidewalk and not the fire hydrant. We've got Madonna with a score of 11. It's a nice portrait. Really like the sharpness of it. The focus is on the eyes. The light is nice. Got a nice side light coming from the left hand side. You see a little bit of catch light in her eyes. The negatives on this image is the processing. There seems to be some sort of kind of gray vignette introduced here, and not too much of a fan of that. Also, the highlights could have been pulled down just a little bit to retain some detail on the left side of her face. Also, the color here is kind of all over the place. Definitely need to fix the white balance here and work on that a bit. But nice portrait, nice focus. The lighting's nice. Just pull down those highlights a bit. So on to our third place image in the advanced category. It's called Killer Eyes by James Edward. Alright, so what I like about this is, first off, clean. Your eyes go straight to his eyes. There's nothing distracting you in the background. His eyes are sharp. His eyes are where you want to look, so that is extremely important to have in focus. Overall, the nice skin tones, no blown out highlights, really nice soft depth of field. Cons to this image is he makes all of us other guys look really bad because he does have killer eyes, but no, really. The white balance may be a little bit warmer here. It seems to be a little bit blue for my liking, but great image, great processing, good job. Up is our second place image, called Outstanding in Its Field by Carol Barlow with a score of 13. Absolutely love this image, and the reason being is not only from a photographic standpoint, it's a great image, nice contrast in color, but also contrast in subject matter. Your image is sharp. I love the depth of field here. The thing that I would have done differently here was to scoot over to the left a little bit and try to get that one blue bonnet that's sticking up on the left hand side to be a little bit more prominent, but don't know if there's a fence line in the way or if there's anything restricting you there, but overall love this image. Okay, so for our first place image, The Bend in the River by Jim Walsh with a score of 14. I love the motion blur in the water, the framing, the composition here, sunset, and pulled up your shadows nicely here to show some detail in there. It looks like you got a little bit of fall colors, so I'm assuming this thing that I would really work on here is maybe pulling down your highlights ever so slightly in the sky to retain some detail in those clouds off in the distance. I know it's extremely difficult to shoot this in a manner to where you can get the motion blur and not get your sky blown out. So great, but overall the way this was shot and processed is very nice. So good job. So next up is Cross Alaska with a score of 6. I really like the contrast with train cars and the green foliage, as well as the contrast of bright colors with the white snowy sky in the background there. Negatives though, just it's unlevel. So first things first, always try and make sure your image is level. And it's a little bit soft and out of focus, and it looks like maybe because the image was shot a bit too slow for a moving train. So I understand what the photographer is trying to do here, but yet there are some elements that are lacking that need to be improved. Next up is Babbling Brook with a score of 6. Nice exposure here. Get any sort of motion blur. Obviously you have to do a slower shutter, so sometimes you could tend to blow out your highlights if there's any hot spots like on the rocks here, and they don't look blown out at all. So good job with that. Good job of getting creative and actually blurring that motion. Overall this image lacks a subject though. I understand we're looking at a river, but what separates this river from another river? You know, how do you make this interesting? If there was a cool animal or something laying on that rock there, that would have totally changed thought on this image. But right now it's a rock and a river. So to our masters category here, photographer at work with a score of 6. This image is nice. There's a nice subtle leading line with the stairs up to the photographer. Overall though, this image is very, very cluttered, and even though the subject's wearing a nice red jacket which helps him pop, my eye goes everywhere throughout this image. So in order to make this image better, probably would have just chosen a better scene, something where I can actually put my individual or put the image of shot a little slow. It seems that there's some blur in the leaves that are on the tree in front of us here. The party is over with a score of 7. Nice still life image here. The exposure is great. Focus is nice. The post-processing, once again, is something that's doing more harm than good here. It looks like the shadows are crunched and to create more contrast, so your blacks are really black and kind of grungy in some spots. Definitely in the bottom left and bottom right, there seems to be too much black, and in the bottom right, I can't tell if it was something editing or the light, or maybe something in front of the lens that caused a little bit of purple kind of wash there. So that's really distracting. So in this image, I would definitely work on not having as much contrast that's seen here, because that's really doing more damage than good. We have New Mexico Land and Sky with a score of 7. Beautiful scene. Love the light in the scene. The mountains are great. It looks like there's a little bit of rain coming down as well. So overall, good job capturing the scene. The exposure's done really nicely. Compositionally is where this image needs a little bit of help. What I would have done is cut out the bottom probably third of the image here. Your eye tends to go down there because it detracts from the image a bit. Some cool patterns down there, but it cut that off there and made this more of a really big panoramic image of the mountains in the distance with the rain falling. But great job controlling your highlights here and not blowing out any of the clouds. To Seeing Double with a score of 7. Let's start off here. First off, great moment. It's not every day that you see a turtle riding another turtle. I love the expression in the turtle's face as well. That's actually doing the riding. Almost has a kind of a smile on its face there. Focus is great, and I love the reflection here. Good job not cutting off the animals in the reflection. Negatives though, looks a little grungy. Could have pulled down the yellows a bit, and also the highlights are a little hot in some spots. It also looks like this image might be cropped in quite a ways, so there's a little bit of pixelization there and some noise, so maybe this would have been better with a different option for a lens. But I know sometimes we're restricted and you just have to get the job done with what you do, so good job with this image. Sunflower at Dusk with a score of 8 next. Pros about this image. I love the creative lighting. Now I know you used an off-camera flash for this shot. There's no way to expose the brightness of the flower the way you have it with the sunset. So good job on getting creative. In this I would have toned down the flash power just a little bit here. Also, there's a little bit of light splash leak, if you want to call it, some pour off onto the grass to the right. So I would have tried to dodge that or burn that a little bit, to bring that down. and really make my eye go to the flower. Evening Glow in Venice with a score of 8. Really nice scene here. Compositionally, good job with kind of creating a leading line with the boat going out, and nice capture with the bird as well. Nice sunset. Lots of positives in this image. The biggest negative that I have with this image, though, is the color balance of it. It seems to be a little blue, just a little green as well. It looks a little washed out here, like it needs a little bit more contrast in the image here, especially the further buildings. They kind of lose that three-dimensional look. It just looks really flat. We have Misty Redwoods with a score of 10. It is indeed a misty scene. Love the scene. Love the contrast here. Job with going black and white, although I would be very curious to see what this looked like in color with some greens popping, and I don't know if that would be some kind of golden light coming through the trees or if it was a white fog or what. Cons, I'm not a fan of the tree on the left-hand side of the frame. Kind of distracting since it's really, really dark. So I would have cropped that out. And also, something to remember with black and white images is they're black and white. They're not gray images. So here, it's more of a gray image than a true black. Overall, a really nice scene. Okay, so next up we have Zebra Loving Nature with a score of 10. First off, good job with choosing black and white here. And choosing black and white allows that zebra to stand off of that bright spot there and really stand out. I love the pose of the zebra too. It's just a very powerful pose. The negatives here are the grain. There's a lot of grain in this image, so I'm not a big fan of that. I don't know if it was the film look that the photographer was trying to go for, but just not a big fan of that. We've got Gullfoss, Iceland with a score of 11. First off is the motion blur that the photographer got, so it captures some of the energy in the image. The thing that really gets me with this image that's awesome is the two people on the top right. You see them standing right on the edge there, and having scale in your image with something of this size just does wonders. You see this image without people in it. You have no idea just how big that waterfall is, but when you show people standing by it like what we have in the top right corner here, that definitely allows you to understand a bit of just how big this scene is. We have our first honorable mention. This shot right here is Setting Sun, Rising Moon by Dennis Fritchie. So what I like here is you have some pools of water left, and that allows the reflection of the buildings to come and go throughout the frame, which is just a cool touch. It's a different scene. The moon, I know for a fact that was layered in there because there's no way to get a long exposure of the buildings here and the moon without blowing the moon out, or there's no way to get the moon shot without the long exposure of the buildings. So good job on blending that in there, but really nice scene, good capture, nice Photoshop here, so good job. Third place image by Charlotte Hasty called Great White Egret Displaying with a score of 13. This is a really nice wildlife shot. Beautiful color, beautiful contrast, beautiful detail. Two things that kept this from moving up to second or possibly first place. First off, the amount of noise in the image. It looks like this might have been cropped in a bit, so there's some grain and noise throughout the background there. Another thing I would have liked to see, and obviously this is not the photographer's fault, maybe this could have been something that could have been captured with a little bit more patience and waiting, but if that bird was looking up rather than down and having a more intimate moment with the photographer, but I don't shoot wildlife because I don't have the patience for it, so good job having the patience of just capturing this image alone. Under the Old Bridge by Danit Volkmore with a score of 13. There are two things that really did it over for this image for me. The first thing is the symmetry. It's a perfectly balanced image. Not only is it balanced left to right, but top to bottom because of the reflection. Also, this image really does a good job showing scale. The rower underneath the bridge shows you just how big this whole scene is. And it's perfectly placed because the symmetry of him rowing, it's a great scene, great eye, and also really, really nice image. Okay, on to our first place image in the Masters category. This is called Agave Nectar Feeding Bat by Larry Peterborg. This received a score of 15, an image that just made me go, wow. Incredible shot, just capturing the bat in full flight here, feeding the details with the ants on the agave, and just everything in this image is sharp. All the details on the bat's wings. Just a beautiful, beautiful image and beautiful scene. This is truly an amazing image, an amazing moment, and you have way more patience than I do. Alright, so now it's time to announce our Best in Show award. And in my opinion, this is an image that just stands out, makes your jaw drop. It is perfectly executed, or as close to perfectly executed as you can get, and it's just one of those images that literally makes you go, wow. So this month's Best in Show goes to Larry Peterborg for his agave nectar. So good job, Larry, and keep up the great work. Alright, so that wraps up the month of April, and I can't thank you guys enough for allowing me to judge your images. You guys have a lot of very talented photographers. It's always amazing to see what everybody else is seeing through their lens, and it inspires me. I've been doing this for 16 years now, and 6 years professionally. It's inspiring to see how everybody else sees the world and what you guys get and how we all see things differently. So keep up the great work. Always keep your eyes open for anything to shoot. You guys saw plenty of images in the contest that most people would walk by. So you guys are doing a great job with that. Just keep your eyes peeled and enjoy what you're doing. That's the biggest part. If you're not enjoying shooting, it definitely shows in your work. So go out, have fun, don't put pressure on yourself, and just do your thing, which you guys are really good at.